Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Tuesday Cruiser Chat with Otram. Um, Same format as always, no real plan, just whatever questions you guys have. Sorry we missed last week. I came home and fired up the laptop to get everything running to come on here. And there was like a Windows update that was hung partially downloaded or installed or something in the laptop, and the laptop just would not run to do live chat. It actually took me a couple of days to get it working again. But anyway, laptop's back, chat's back. So yeah, I'm trying to think what's new at the shop. We're doing a Kmar rear bumper and a long-range automotive auxiliary tank on an LX470. I put the Delta vehicle system center console and shift console in the Turbo 80 today, which gets me one step closer to having the gauges in and firing it up and running. So that's getting close. Trying to think what else. I think everything else that's at the shop right now is just standard run-of-the-mill, like, timing belts and suspension and all that jazz. Nothing exciting. I found a big chunk of the parts I need to put the mill back together that we got. So that's exciting. So hopefully we'll have a shop mill soon. And to John, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Delta console is powder coat. But yeah, it looked really good. And it like I've seen pictures of it. I've been following the threads of it on the internet. And having it in person and like in the truck, it's so much nicer than it even looks online. It's a really cool setup, and it wasn't bad to install. It probably took maybe a half an hour to put it in, so it wasn't bad at all to install. I was really impressed with it. Yeah, it came from Delta, colored like that. The little gauge panel is like a matte black, I'm guessing powder coat, and then the rest of the console was done in tan. I guess it's something they just started offering. But yeah, it came already coated. I didn't do anything to it but take it out of the box and throw it in the truck this afternoon, as soon as FedEx dropped it off. I do not know of a conversion for drum to disc on the newer Tundras. We hardly ever see anything on the Tundra side of things. Everybody just brings us cruisers, and I've never looked into it. Hopefully the bad kung fu movie isn't on my end. At least on the monitor I'm watching, everything looks okay. Like the microphone is syncing with the video, but yeah, I don't actually have headphones on, so I can't tell for sure. On the 80 series, we've had a lot of them. They'll come in with spongy brakes. You'll replace everything, bleed everything, and they're still spongy. And we've gone through and done, the brake master, brake booster, pads, rotors, calipers, wheel bearings, like everything, and the brakes are still spongy. Okay, good, it's not me. But yeah, and I haven't figured out the rhyme or reason to it. Like, we'll get some in that the pedal feels great, and then we get some in and the pedal's terrible. Like, they still stop, but the pedal's spongy. I don't know if it's the ABS, like something leaking internally in there, because that's, we haven't, that's the only frontier we haven't gone into on the 80 is replacing the ABS block. And I'm wondering if it's not something in there that's bleed or leaking through on the ones that we're getting spongy pedals on. But they've always been decent enough, and they always improved, after bleeding them and everything. So we've never actually dug into the ABS. Yeah, and bleeding the air out of an 80 series, it takes forever. We've got a big 2-gallon power bleeder, and we'll usually run through probably a gallon of brake fluid on an 80 series bleed, just trying to make sure we've got all the air out of the proportioning valve and everywhere else. Wow, I would not think that a bad battery would cause a random high idle. I guess stranger things have happened, but that would not have been anywhere near the top 10 things I would have gone looking for. So I'll have to put that in the back of my head for next time I've got weird issues. And awesome, glad the videos were helpful in doing the timing belt. Yeah, we usually start with a large catch bottle for the brake bleeding. It usually ends up all over the floor, though. Yeah, I'm sure there must be a rhyme and reason to the 80 series spongy brakes. I just haven't figured it out. It just seems like some of them just like to have spongy brakes. Oh, and Zach, you're talking about the one-man bleeder where you just let it bubble through the brake fluid. Yeah, we've done it that way as well. Yeah. Uh, we use the pressure bleeder just because it's so much easier, and we can like throw tons of fluid through there. And yeah, try to never let the pedal go all the way to the bottom of its stroke. I've ripped more than a few master cylinder seals doing that. Yeah, once we switched to doing the pressure bleeder, it made a world of difference. And a lot of the newer stuff that's coming through, if you look at the service manual, it says you have to have the pressure bleeder to bleed them out properly. So it just makes sense to have them. Awesome, another person that's digging the videos. I always like it when people find the videos useful, because when we very first started making them, it's like, nobody's gonna dig these. So I'm glad that so many people are getting use out of them. I wasn't on here last week. I was having laptop issues. Have not fired the turbo truck up yet. I'm waiting for a block drain from Toyota because it got a new short block, and normally, like, our Toyota guy tells us, hey, you need a new, block drain. So we just get one with the block. Well, the customer brought us this block, and I guess their Toyota guy didn't tell them about the block drain. So we're waiting on a block drain, but they are back ordered from Toyota. So I'm going to wait a little bit more, and then I'm going to make my own. Because we got the gauge mounts and everything in today and got all that thrown in. So I'm so close to firing it up. Just haven't gotten to yet. Yeah, I think like half the people that, like, service folks that do work on the 100 series don't realize the heater tees are back there. We replace them anytime we drain the coolant or have the coolant down on 100, just because they're so cheap and it's good insurance. Because almost every time we go to pull them, they're just crumbly. So we keep a box of them at the shop, just in case we need them. Yeah, I don't get how that or why the heater tees break down as much as they do, because they feel and seem like they're the same plastic that the radiator tanks are made out of. And it seems like it takes much longer for the radiator tanks to degrade to the point that the heater tees do. When I was putting the center diff lock solenoid in, if I'm remembering correctly, I was probably wiggling the shift lock. There's a gear that drives the shift lock fork rail. That's a mouthful. I was probably jiggling it to get it to drop down so that I could put the shift motor back in. Yeah. You can lock and unlock manually with that rail on top, and you've got to make sure that the position you put the solenoid back in matches where you took it out. So yeah, it very well could be that somebody put it in the wrong spot. And yes, the block drain that Wits End sells is the one I'm looking for. And I called him this afternoon to see if he had any in stock, and he had to check, and I've not heard back yet. But yeah, it's a block drain. On the original 1FZ blocks, it was just like a brass plug that threaded into the side of the block. The new one is it's like the little wit's end one sells. It's got the little spigot and the bolt. And yeah, my camera's focusing on the bookshelf because for some reason it doesn't want to go into video mode where it should be switching to me while I'm moving, and is for some reason stuck in picture mode. And now that we've started chat, I'm kind of leery of messing with it because I don't want to lose camera altogether. On aftermarket 100 series radiators, if you haven't put the Spectra in already, I would not put it in. Spectra's just like really low end from what I've seen. We usually use either Koyo Rad or Denso. Yeah, I would not run a Spectra. And on Vicken, I'm guessing that either the mesh or the synchronizing isn't right with the CDL actuator, or that your viscous coupling may have locked up, which I have never seen happen, but I've heard about it online, so I don't actually know the symptoms behind it. So unfortunately, I don't have much good advice for you. And as far as shirt designs, no, there's nothing new design-wise except I switched from using Teespring to an actual cruiser guy that does like t-shirts and merchandise, and he does like t-shirts and shower curtains and sweatshirts and signs and everything. And there's a link down in the description to his site. It's Reef Monkey. I think Reef Monkey Designs. It's a guy out of North Carolina that does super awesome stuff. So he's doing shirts and all that kind of jazz now. Now, I haven't actually run a Spectra in anything Toyota, but back when I worked in the body shop, we'd see a lot of them come through, and they weren't great. So I've always been, leery of putting anything, any of them in the customer's truck. I've always had really good luck out of Denzos and Koyos. Yeah. And who's jingling? We've got 2 dogs. Trillion is a Black Lab Dachshund mix, best guess. And Atticus is Blue Heeler and Corgi mix. And they're thinking it's dinner time, so they're wandering around. An FJ62 was likely green from the get-go. I don't think the red came out until like 93, 94, maybe somewhere in there. Green's totally fine. The red is longer lasting. But yeah, we use green in all the older trucks. And yeah, Reef Monkey's got all kinds of crazy stuff on there. Yeah, we've got an oddball mix of dogs. And I'm with Zach. For the older stuff, green coolant. is all good. You know, even a lot of the 80 series has had green, and if they come in with green, we leave them green. You know, if they came in with red, we put red back in them. The only time I get super particular about it is the new ones that call for pink, because apparently the pink goes with the new head, like the head materials. So we stick with the pink on the new stuff. And 100 series with a stiff transfer case shift lever, I would bet that it's just crusty, rusty, and seized up on the pivot, you know, down underneath the floor, and it just needs to be taken apart and greased. Beyond that, I can't think of anything that would really make it stiff. Yeah, the red's expensive. The pink is really expensive because it comes pre-diluted. But yeah, we keep green, red, pink, and Subaru blue around, just because my Subaru takes the blue. Yeah, and I'm not, you know, for sure that the pink corresponds to new chemistry, but that's what I heard. And I kind of feel like if Toyota specs it that way, then we should probably follow it. But which blue? Subaru blue doesn't taste bad. The European blue is disgusting. Not that I go around taste testing coolants. Yeah, we see a bunch of the transfer case shift levers. They've got like a nylon bushing in them, and the shaft itself gets rusted and corroded and swells and makes that bushing fit really tight. A lot of times we'll just take it apart, clean it up and grease it, put it back together, and all is well. Green is the tastiest, by the way. I think the Ford orange has to be the worst tasting. You guys are fine. It's not time yet. Yes, they do. Mice really like green too, and you always find them bloated in the drain pan when you forget to empty it overnight. Yeah, the Delta console, I've been following it online and was like, man, that thing's awesome. Holding it in your hands and having it in the truck, it is way more awesome than what it looks like on the internet. I do like the taste of purple. I don't know if that counts. I haven't seen the Delta bumper in person, but there's a local guy that's supposed to be coming out for some work done, and I think he's on the list for the Delta bumper for an 80 series. So I should be seeing one soon. And I like... Yeah, it's a really cool combo. Like, we thought that we were only getting the shifter cover, and then 2 boxes showed up today, and it was the cover and the console. And yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, we ended up getting the Delta. Yeah, their shift console has a gauge cluster in it, so we got an AEM boost slash air fuel ratio gauge, a digital temp gauge, and oil pressure gauge to go in there, so we can keep a really good eye on everything that's going on with the new turbo motor. Well, I've got one good tech. I got Crash with me. We had another guy come out, I guess the weekend before Thanksgiving to interview. That looks promising. It's just a matter of getting the stars to align and everything, because there's a move involved with that one. Denso, I haven't had any issues with Denso AC parts. We've used quite a bit of them. I'm going brain dead. You'll just want to look up the oil balance, because when you do everything, you're supposed to like put some of the oil in the condenser, some of the oil in the dryer, some of the oil in the compressor, so that it's all spread around. That's the only real suggestion. And hey, Steven, what's going on? My opinion on selectable lockers is the E-lockers from Harrop. They're stout. You've only got electrical wires going, so if you rip one off on the trail, it's a lot easier to splice an electrical wire back than mess with the air hose. You don't have to worry about a compressor. And the biggest is you don't have to worry about the stupid O-rings that, over time go bad in an air locker. So yeah, I like the E-lockers just for their simplicity. My preferred gear brand had been Yukon. But the last set we got from them had switched to Chinese, and they did not set up as nicely as the ones prior. So I currently don't have a favorite gear manufacturer. We're probably going to give Nitro a try next, and see how those go together. Yeah, I'm hoping we need another tech because we've got a hell of a backlog. Most common issues that we have in the shop. We do lots of timing belts on the 4.7s. Lots of knuckle rebuilds, on the 80 series and the earlier trucks. We do quite a few 80 series head gaskets. Um, yeah, and beyond that, a bunch of suspension stuff. Uh, most all the Land Cruiser issues, we do a lot of oil pump cover seals on the 80s. Luckily, Toyota put the evaporator, the evaporator on the 80 series in a super easy spot to get to. You can just take the glove box down and it pulls out. They didn't hide it all up behind the dash and make you have to pull everything to get to it. Which cruiser generation do I like working on the most? Probably 80 series. They're still relatively simple, but they're, I guess, high-tech enough that they haven't really been butchered. So yeah, like the 40s and the 60s, we see just, so much butchery on them, and it makes them really hard to work on because you've got to not only, do the modification that the customer wants or the repair, but you have to go through and rework all the previous butchering in order to actually do the repair or the mods. The 80 series just seems to not have had the butchers on most of them. So they seem to be the most straightforward to work on. And 40 series are cool, unless you have to work on them all the time. I'd love a 60 body on an 80 chassis with the 5.7 drivetrain. But that is going to take way more buckets of money than I have. So I think 100 series would fall into my least favorite cruiser to work on category. Mostly just because the rust and corrosion issues we see with them here. It seems like you're constantly fighting corrosion. On the part-time kit, I've never installed one, so I don't have any input from that end. And the reason you lose the ABS is because the tone rings are on the burr fields in the front axle. And when you go to the locking hubs, your burr fields aren't spinning at the same rate as your wheels are anymore, so you lose that signal. As far as I know, nobody's done a kit to move the sensors to anywhere else. Yeah, I'd say probably 80% of what we do is 80 series. Maybe 70%. And then the rest is 100 series, closely followed by 100 series, and then, a smattering of everything else. And around here, yeah, for some reason the 100 series are way more rusty than the 80 series. We're doing a rear bumper on 100 series today, and every one of the trailer hitch bolts was rotten almost completely through just inside the frame. And all the frame, the nut plates that are inside the rear frame for all the attachments all had rotten away and were just flapping around inside. So I ended up having to make a whole bunch of new nut plates before we could put the bumper on. Yeah, I'd imagine Vermont's a pretty rusty, crusty state. I lived in Boston for a while, and man, there was some rotten vehicles. Yeah, we're seeing like really bad rust on the frames on the 100 and like the rear quarter panels, like up behind where the rear bumper hides. Like the whole bottom of the quarter panel will just be rotten completely off. Yeah. Road salt's terrible. Yeah, other than rust, the 100 series is, I mean, they hold up well. We do CV axles on them, for ripped boots, but usually not until, 200 or so thousand miles. Like, they hold up. They just rust away. Trilly, come on. Stay in here with me. Yeah, roof rust is definitely not a fun one. You're a girl. You need to stay in here with me. You do. What? Do you want to say hi to the people on the YouTubes? Well, come here. Can you jump up? Well, you're not doing a good job of looking. Fluid film seems to do a really good job. We've got a couple of customers that apply it religiously, and their trucks are definitely less rusty than others that come through. It smells god-awful terrible putting it on, but luckily the smell goes away after a while. Here, our 100 series was a 2UZFE, I think. It's the 4.7 V8. And to Kevin, it looks like you've got everything. The only thing I might add to that is the pesky heater hose at the back of the head under the intake. Since you're going to have the coolant out anyway, might as well replace that at the same time, if it hadn't already been done. Good bursts that aren't OEM. Yeah, we've used the Train Tamer ones with good success. We've used nitros with good success. And I feel like there's another one, like another off-brand, but I can't remember what it was. I probably wouldn't bother with the fuel filter. It's a pain in the ass to do, and unless you're experiencing like fuel issues, like fuel starvation, stuff like that, I wouldn't mess with it. I heard from a Toyota tech eons ago that Toyota hid the fuel filters because they expected that there would be more dirt introduced into the system with people changing the filter than there would be just leaving the filter there. If that's true or not, I don't know. But we've never seen a fuel issue stem from a fuel filter yet on an 80 series. I'm sure it happens. But if you're not experiencing any issues, I probably wouldn't bother changing it. And to Brian, yeah, likely we won't be here next week and the following week because of the way Christmas and New Year's Eve fall. So yeah, it'll be like the 7th that we'd be back. Yeah, you can pull both Burfields out at the same time. The only time it matters, lockers or not, is the rear on an 80. You have to lock it before you pull the, I think it's passenger side axle shaft. Maybe driver's, yeah, it's passenger axle shaft. Because if you don't lock it first, the coupler falls into the housing. The 1UZ is or 2UZ, I'm sorry, it's an iron block. It's an heavy SOB. And they seem to hold up really well. Yeah, I like that fluid film seems to wick up in the cracks and get in between all the brackets and everything. And it seems to offer some protection that way as well, more than just surface protection. And as far as manhandling the timing gears, the gears shouldn't have any issue. The issue lies with when they roll like that. There's a chance of bending a valve. Theoretically, if you follow the factory manual and you have the crank in the proper position, then the valves won't hit the head, or won't hit the pistons, even if the timing or the cam spins. And they always seem to spin some, like they want to flip and flop. It's really rare to have a timing belt job where they don't spin. It may look like there's some manhandling, but I actually am feeling to make sure I'm not, running into anything, smashing valves, or anything like that. There's definitely a feel to it. You don't want to force. If it doesn't spin freely, don't force it, because if it's not spinning freely, something's hitting. And yeah, I say theoretically because there always is that chance that something goes wrong. So you always want to be feeling as you're doing it to make sure you're not smashing valves. Yeah, happy holidays to everybody else that's tuned in case I forget before I sign off. You're fine. It's not time yet. Yeah, they almost always roll. Because, like, where the timing set is, I guess it's supposed to be at the balance point of all the valve springs to kind of hold it there, but as soon as you bump it, it just spins. So, yeah, you've got to put it back. You just hope you don't smush anything. It's funny, we don't actually have a set of torches at the shop. I got a bunch of welders, and I've got a inductor for heating things up, but no torches. Yeah, the 4/7 timing belt. It's not a bad job. It looks intimidating, but as long as you just take your time, keep track of where all the hardware goes, it's not a bad job to do. I was trying to see if I could get it to focus better, but it doesn't look like it's going to cooperate. Yeah, I can imagine all the torching you've got to do up in Vermont. I do not envy you. Yeah, and I mean, just the cams are gonna spin, um, so just and there'll be a light resistance turning them back as you compress springs, but if you feel any like hard stop, then stop and reevaluate the situation. There isn't a cross member that drops out on the 100 series. Like the skid plates will come off, but no, there's no cross members that come out. Sometimes you can get them apart without cutting. Ones that weren't local all their life, that came from a sunnier, drier climate, will unbolt. A lot of times, though, the corrosion set in so hard on the ones we see that we don't even bother trying to unbolt them. We just go straight to the Sawzall because it's going to be faster in the end. And it's it even when they're not rusty, the upper shock bolt in the rear, it's just a pain to get to. So a lot of times, even if it's in good condition, it's easier just to cut them. I don't know about Colorado. I'd assume Minnesota would be pretty bad on road salt. I don't know that there's very much of a secondary market for the AHC stuff. usually it's so whooped and worn out by the time people take it off that they're not worth selling. Man, I want to move to New Mexico. Yeah, I thought Colorado either used sand or like ash or something, but it's been 20 some years since I've been out there. And I wasn't driving then, so it didn't matter to me. We just went to ski. I don't have any plans to do an 80 series timing case video. It'd be something we'd have to get the job to come through the shop for me to do it. It's basically, you can spin the gear that the actuator runs against, and you can run it. You'll feel the detents as the shift rail goes from lock to unlock. It's basically all the way forwards, all the way back. And then just whichever way you shift it, make sure it corresponds to the position that the actuator's in. But yeah, if we do another one, I'll do a video on it. But it's not something that comes through the shop super often. Yeah, I really dig New Mexico and Colorado. When we lived in Texas, we drove to both to ski in the winter. And it was just so awesome up there. Who knew we'd be learning so much about Colorado's road treatment policies today? Yeah, I think I wish somebody would put together like a comprehensive map of the U.S. and what road treatment products were used where, so you could keep that in mind when you were looking for vehicles to buy. Sweet, yeah, I think we're good on 2F drivetrains at the moment. I think we've got at least 3 cores at the shop. I'd have to check. But yeah, we should be good for now. But I appreciate the offer. God, I think I was like really young the last time I went to Taos. tips on cleaning out the weather strip trim? I don't have any good ones. Other than maybe like a soft, like long bottle brush or something like that. To clean up under the strip. Yeah, compressed air would probably be a good shot too. I always forget about using the air compressor to blow things out. I've never actually seen a bad viscous coupler in the transfer case, so I'm not positive what it will do. I would assume that both drive shafts would turn in the same direction. Actually, no, because they'd still be going through the... Well, I don't know. I've never actually followed the path of force through there to know if it's still running through the center diff or not. The way it's like an inside-outside shaft on there. So I'm not positive. I would assume with a bad viscous coupler that they would both turn in the same direction, but I'm not positive. Thoughts on a catch can for a 1FZ? It shouldn't need one. If you're getting enough blow-by that you're looking at a catch can, if you're looking at a catch can because you're having oil blow-by issues, you'd probably be better off solving the issue behind the oil blow-by rather than just trying to catch it. But I've never installed one, so I don't have any tips there. And Google tip is good that the viscous couplers fail open. I could have sworn that I've heard of them failing seized. But maybe I was reading about something else. And yes, we have way too many books. There's a couple more bookshelves at the other end of the house. Blow-by issues, could be worn piston rings, valve seats, valve stem seals. Worn piston rings would probably be the biggest of them. But, yeah, there'd be a lot of blow-by. To cause any issues. And I don't really see blow-by causing a 401 unless you just had just so much that it just completely like clogged everything with like, you know, tar. But again, I could be wrong. And books are good when the power goes out. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and jump off of here for the evening and get the dogs some dinner. And as a reminder, we won't be here the next 2 weeks. We'll be starting back up early January, whatever the week is after New Year's. I think somebody posted up above that it was the 7th. So yeah, gone for the next 2 weeks. But yeah, hope everybody has a great holiday. Whichever one you guys celebrate. And yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed below, think about subscribing. And then you'll get the alerts when I do these. Yeah, and if you really dig the YouTube channel, check out our Patreon link down in the description. The support is always appreciated. Yeah, happy holidays to everybody, and I will catch you guys after the new year. Thanks for tuning in.